What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, the internet was certainly testing me with all the headlines that were going around for April Fool's Day and having to look really into this stuff to make sure it wasn't an elaborate April Fool's Day joke, to the point where I decided, you know what? Let's just go over some of those. Do a big roundup of some of the better April Fool's Day joke for video games specifically, and we'll do that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about Nintendo getting rejected specifically for a number of patents and claims that they had made months ago. And now it looks like things aren't going their way, and this could actually throw a bit of a wrench even into the whole Pow World situation. And we had just a random acquisition that was announced last night, one that I was certainly not expecting, and it involves Shift Up, who you may know from Stellar Blade. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Sony and their next generation offerings that we've been hearing about. The PlayStation 6 is most of them making the headlines because people are just curious now how much the thing is going to cost after seeing where the PS5 Pro now sits at $900. But there's also been a lot of discussion around the handheld, and we're starting to see a bit more. This coming from Kepler, who's typically pretty good with some of the knowledge behind the scenes, especially with AMD, saying the GPU is a bit ahead of the Xbox Series S in raster and massively ahead in things like ray tracing and path tracing. Also going a bit further into the FSR 5 or PSSR 3 that will be better than what you see right now, say with the Switch 2 and the DLSS offering there, and even comparing it outright to like DLSS 4.5. And I don't think it's shocking to hear that a handheld from Sony that would be coming out 2.5 years after, say, the Switch 2 and 7 years after the Xbox Series S would perform better in games. That seems pretty obvious, and I'd actually be disappointed if it was even on the level of either of those. So it is good to hear that at least the offering that Sony is setting up for holiday 2027 should be pretty good. The question really now isn't about, okay, how capable is it? What about the power and everything? It's more about the price. That's what a lot of people are really thinking about right now, especially with where the prices currently sit. Also, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is off to a fast start, kind of as expected, but since it did technically launch on a Wednesday, people were unsure as to how things would go, at least out of the gate, heading into the weekend. But, I mean, you can see over on Deadline saying Super Mario Galaxy movie already breaking records with best ever April Wednesday at $34 million. Wow, okay, and if you look, as people, of course, have been able to see it and can kind of weigh in over on places like Rotten Tomatoes, the user score is much different than the critic score. The user score is at 91% versus the 43% of the critic score, and this is kind of how it was for the Super Mario movie. Is very similar in that the user score was really high and the critic score was just like low. So here, I mean, that's the thing. I think people going into the movie theater for the Super Mario Galaxy movie know what they're getting into, and they're not expecting some Oscar-worthy, like, oh, it's going to compete for the best movie ever made or end of the year movie, or they line up a bunch of them that you probably haven't heard of 80% of them, really, and then they battle it out for the Oscar for the best movie of the year. I think everyone went into the Super Mario Galaxy movie thinking that. They were thinking, hey, this should be a lot of fun. Take the family out, see a Mario movie that Fox is in, and probably see some really cool visuals on the big screen with the whole Galaxy theme and Odyssey being thrown in there as well. And seems like people are leaving the movie theater happy. And yeah, the movie's probably going to make a ton of money. I think it's pretty clear, and most people are expecting $1 billion plus. But hey, we'll find out over the coming months at this point, but certainly it's setting up for a very big opening weekend. Oh, and I wanted to quickly touch on this for Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, since it's out here in a couple of weeks, specifically for Switch 2 owners who are going to be checking this game out, as we hear that it will have some Switch 2 enhancements. You can see this. This is over on Nintendo Everything, as we had sort of a Q&A for Nintendo with their title coming up here at Tomodachi Life. They did note that the title will simply run at a 1080p resolution undocked on the Switch 2, so it won't utilize the boost mode at all because it'll just be running at that resolution to match the Switch 2 in handheld mode. There's no mention at all about the idea of it in docked mode, but I feel like if they've already changed the resolution here to more so match up with the Switch 2 in handheld mode, I guess it'll probably be like 4K, upscale 4K even for the Switch 2 in docked mode. So good news there. Should look pretty good for the most part in handheld mode on the Switch 2. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with April Fool's Day. Might as well turn it into a story, I guess, since this did mostly dominate the headlines yesterday and social media, where everyone was just disappointing people constantly. It's kind of just the internet anyway, but in this case, it was all really funneled into like a 10-hour window, and in some cases, it was an April 1st where you were, and you're just confused, because it's like, oh great, this is a thing. Or it's not because I'm ahead or behind of their time zone or whatever. But I went through and I grabbed a couple, and I also linked down below to Gamatsu in the sources with a massive roundup if you just want to scroll through and check out a bunch of different April Fool's jokes that were put out there by different video game companies. But like, we'll start here, and that's with Sega, who announces that their logo is now 3% more blue. They did an actual side-by-side comparison there, and they went ahead and set up Sonic shirts. So there you go. They're actually selling them. They were like $35 or so with shipping. So you can check that out if you want a Sonic shirt. Bubsy only Paul's site. That's clever. Obviously take on OnlyFans there with Bubsy. Square Enix did a video where they showed off a party chat edition between Moogle and Namazu. And here's the thing though. You can't understand what they're saying, so it was like a minute and a half of just sound effects, really. CD Projekt Red, this one was pretty clever. It's a Roach controller for Witcher, and they actually show it. It's like one of those toy horses with a stick where you ride around, and the idea then you just control Roach in the Witcher game. So, I mean, it's funny. I think this is the thing with April Fool's Day with these video game companies. They can show people like funny ideas for projects that may or may not be in development or R&D, and then they can kind of gauge reaction. I know you're probably not going to control the game with a horse Roach toy, but as like, hey, here's a special edition thing, and we made Roach, like that April Fool's joke that you guys thought was really funny a few years ago. Wouldn't shock me if that ended up happening. Level 5 Land, so Level 5 announced a theme park, and the trailer, it looked like they were definitely saving money on whatever video generation AI setup they were using. It didn't look great, but okay, sure, a theme park that didn't really look real, so there you go. Capcom did a whole Mega Man Pragmata crossover, which I do like because that's been a fan theory for a while, so they heavily leaned into it here for April Fools, and they had the main character having like a whole Mega Man setup, and you know what? I actually hope this is in the game. I hope it's a full unlockable. It's something you get after you play through the game 12 times, something crazy, right? But it's that unlockable where, yes, you can be the blue bomber when you play through Pragmata. I hope it's like unlimited ammo, you're like super strong, the whole thing. It's like that final big unlock. That'd be really cool. The big story, though, that really took over, IGN. And this was good. This was actually well done, I think, overall, with the production value behind it, the fact that it looked real, and the fact that it may be a glimpse into the future with PlayStation Project Playmo. All right, so it's AI that, yes, will play the game for you. And I know it's like, oh, April Fools, maybe. And it's just the patents and other things. It's clear where they got the idea for this. I think it was well executed again with how it was presented, which is, it looks like they actually took some time with this one. But the fact that the AI goes rogue and starts ordering pizzas and deletes your save data, things that people are concerned about outright with AI being intertwined with your gaming system. Yeah, they showed the nightmare scenario over and over again in the span of, what was like 2 minutes or so for the trailer that they ran. And you know what? Some people actually believed it was real. And I mean, that's part of the April Fool's Day joke, is to show something that is ridiculous, but also kind of believable. And they threaded the needle here, so I got to give IGN credit on the Project Playmo thing. Also, the eyes that are on the controller. Sony might be getting some ideas, all right, for this, but I guess let me know what your favorite April Fool's Day jokes were from yesterday, video game related or not. Maybe there's something that just, I don't know, some random company did and you thought it was clever. Although I do wonder how many people are getting tired of the April Fool's Day thing. Yeah, I think it's kind of annoying about April Fool's Day now that's made it a bit more exhausting is the idea of like AI video generation. It's just, it almost makes it too easy for people to fabricate stuff. I like back in the day where these companies really, really had to try, or people in general online. I think about the Zelda movie trailer that IGN did, and that was really well done. Like, it was super involved. Yes, the Project Playmo thing was also kind of involved, but nowhere on the level of that Zelda trailer. So that kind of stuff, it feels like there was effort, whereas the AI generation stuff, it's a prompt, and then there you go. Now you can go trick the internet that Mother 3 is getting localized or Half-Life 3 is out tomorrow. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo getting rejected for a number of claims related to a patent. And while the lingo is rejected here, or the verb is rejected, technically it's revoked because Nintendo had a lot of these patents like approved, and no, it seems like they wanted to go back and take a second look. But we can see this though. This is over on GameSpray, who broke the story, and I'll have this link down below, as they went into like really super detail here. They went over it for quite a while in their write-up. They say Nintendo received a US patent last year on what amounts to summoning in a sub-character and let it fight in one of 2 battle modes, one of which is automatic, while the other involves full control by the player. Less than 2 months later, the head of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Director John A. Squires, ordered a re-examination of this patent. The examiner therefore started the re-examination process and put out a non-final office action last week, rejecting all claims of the patent in question. The rejection is a non-final, and even when such rejections are labeled as final, the process is far from over, given that there can be, at minimum, an appeal to the federal circuit, and it seems like Nintendo has so many months to do all of that, and then they can even extend it beyond. So again, they mentioned far from over, and they'd be correct in the way that they lay it out there. But this is the whole thing about patenting video game mechanics and stuff is very, very annoying, because as we've gone over in the past with different examples, it can just stymie creation and creativity completely, because you might have a smaller studio who has an idea that might be too close, to say a creature summoning patent that Nintendo has. And they're like, maybe I won't do that because I can't stand up to them in court. But this is something that's happened for a while. We've talked about the Nemesis system being a big one, where it's like the WB patented that, and now it's like you can't do much with it. But with this one, it was interesting because it kind of lined up with some of the stuff that Nintendo was battling Pal World over, and it's like, wait, if they get that, what will that mean for their case with Pal World, which is still ongoing? And that's the thing with the legal process. It takes forever to get anything done, and we're seeing it here in real time with Pal World. But I have to imagine, because Nintendo did have this patent, that's the thing. They say reject, and that's just, again, that's the wording they use here. It's technically being taken away from Nintendo now after it originally was approved at the end of last year. So I almost wonder if there was a process already ongoing with Nintendo. It's like, okay, we got these patents and we're looking around to see what's going on with Power World there as well, as that's ongoing. And if this kind of shakes things up for them a bit here. Now, they could be, again, appealing, and who knows from there. But at least for now, Nintendo, that patent that they thought they had, it's not anymore. It got taken away. So I guess we'll see what they want to do from here. But I actually think this is a good thing, because again, the whole patenting video game mechanics is pretty annoying to see. So in this case, it's good that it's just kind of back out there in the wild, hopefully for no one else to attempt to patent. Next up, let's talk about a surprise acquisition that happened. For me, it was like 10 o'clock at night leading into April Fool's Day. So I had to stop and think about this for a minute when it did appear. I was like, hold on, is this that time zone difference April Fool's Day joke? Because it involves Shift Up buying Shinji Mikami's new studio, Unbound, and it seems like they have big plans for them. So we can see this. This is over on Tweaktown, who had the story saying, the rumors were true. Shift Up and Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami have joined forces. Shift Up, headquartered in Korea, has acquired Shinji Mikami's Japanese studio, Unbound, and will help fund and publish new projects, including Mikami's first game. Mikami says that the new project is a sizable game, but won't offer specifics, saying, quote, for the first time in a while, I'll be fully involved on site to work on a fairly large game, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, I mean, I assume Shinji Mikami, we can probably see this new project and figure, okay, it's a horror-themed game of some kind, just based on his track record. The idea of Hi-Fi Rush was so weird coming from Tango Gameworks at the time, because they were known for things like Evil Within. There was some concept art that was shared. People were sort of tying it to something in the Stellar Blade universe, but then it's like, well, no, before they mention that it's a brand new IP that they're working on. Still, though, even with the concept art in mind, it looks like it would be kind of on the darker or more horror-based side. Still, we do have a quote here as well from Shift Up founder Kim Hyung-tae saying, "It is a profound honor to work alongside the top-tier creative team at Unbound. I am deeply moved to support the visionaries behind the legendary games I've cherished my whole life, especially a project directed by Shinji Mikami himself. We are currently preparing a diverse lineup from massive blockbusters that will shock the world to experimental projects fueled by brilliant, sparkling ideas. Please look forward to what's coming." This is also very interesting for Shift Up, by the way, because of course they for a lot of us, they were doing things before that with, they had like mobile MMO games, something, but they really broke onto the scene for a lot of us with Stellar Blade, and it sold pretty well. Sold well on the PS5, sold very well, it seemed like, on the PC, and obviously they've made quite a bit of money on that, as well as, again, some of their other projects, as we constantly would see them gifting some of the employees all kinds of stuff. PlayStation 5 systems, Switch 2 systems, and just cash bonuses. So it's pretty obvious they were doing well. This is a whole new level, though, because it kind of feels like Shift Up is moving into the territory of, like, publisher. Like they bought a studio who is upcoming right now, right? Like Shinji Mikami, he's well known, but it's like, what has Unbound done yet? Nothing yet. But it seems like they have a lot of ideas and they're very creative, and they're also working into smaller experimental projects that could then lead to more stuff for Shift Up to put out. So it's interesting to see Shift Up kind of take this step, but now I'm really curious as to what Shinji Mikami has in mind, because whatever it is, Shift Up took a look at it, I assume, and they said, yeah, we're going to fund that. And we'll definitely be behind this experimental weird project you have running here. So this could be very, very interesting to follow along with for Shinji Mikami and Unbound. So we'll keep an eye on them, as well as Shift Up, who seems to have big plans for things even beyond Stellar Blade now, so we'll stay tuned. And in our last bit of news, we do have the PlayStation Plus Essential Games for the month of April. These will all be live April 7th, and we can see the card here that Sony put on PlayStation Blog, starting with Lords of the Fallen. Again, not to be confused with Lords of the Fallen that came out before that. So I never got into really Lords of the Fallen here. There's this most recent one. I know there's a big update for it, and if you've just been curious about it and hearing here and there about this game, there it goes in the PlayStation Plus Essentials, so you can download it and try it out from there, again, post-update. But then we have Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 Remastered. This was a good release. I like this one quite a bit. It wasn't like a mind-blowing full remake or anything, but I think they did enough here with some of the upgraded but still classic visual style, and they played around with some of the controls and stuff, so it is much more approachable, we'll say, than how it is now if you go back and try to play it on like the original PlayStation. Very, very good addition, though, into Essential. I'll definitely say check that one out if you've been curious. Then we have Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream. I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not a Sword Art Online person, so I guess if there is someone out there who can let us know in the comments if this is a good thing or not, I'm really unsure. I need to look up reviews for it, but I don't know if Sword Art Online review scores are typically like super high or anything. It looked like it might have been on the lower end for, say, Metacritic or so, but I mean, it's going into Essentials, and I kind of view it as the third game, as Lords of the Fallen is clearly the big headliner, and then Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 Remastered is, I would say, probably the second game then, and then Sword Art Online. It's also worth noting that Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 Remastered is the lone PlayStation 4 game here, but it's just because it has a PS4 edition. So again, definitely worth checking out, whether it's on PS4 or PlayStation 5. But let me know about Sword Art Online and if it's something that people should be checking out. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you like April Fool's Day? Well, okay, I got 72% say no, 28% say yes. I did see some in the comments like, hey, I like April Fool's Day if it's like a good one, as in, oh, it's obviously outlandish, but they still take time to do some kind of image for it, or they go all in for like a trailer or a video. Like, it's so obvious that it's not real. You go, oh, well, clearly, let's see where they go with it. But they take it completely seriously. It's more about when somebody just, goes with something that could actually be correct, and you just get annoyed and disappointed when you realize, oh yeah, it is April 1st. Or it's April 1st for the person who's putting this out. I think the time zone thing is really messing with people with this whole April Fool's Day thing. Again, I think it was better like years and years ago, probably a decade or so ago, compared to where we are now, where it's just image generation, video generation is just a click and a few characters being typed out away, and then there you go. You can fool everyone with halfway decent video generation. Apparently, Oh, really, unless you're level 5, because that just didn't really look good. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Diddy Kong, who says, critics also really hated the Goofy movie. Let that sink in. Oh, that was a good one. That was, when that hit in the mid 90s, that was like the movie back then. You went and saw it in theaters, or you got the, oh, you know what I was thinking about when I read this comment and I picked it? A little bit of a nostalgia wave there was when I thought about the VHS that we had, way back in the day. And we had the VHS, and it had the puffy, remember the puffy casing that you had for the VHS movies? Specifically, I think of the Disney movies that had the big plastic puffy cases that you like pop open, and they got crushed sometimes if the VHS wasn't in there and it looked all bad. But when they were like nice and brand new, or even like at least somewhat decently kept, and you lined them all up, they looked pretty good, I think, on a bookshelf. You obviously don't have that anymore. We're barely getting physical media as it is, and even then, it's typically some pretty basic or cheap looking DVD cases. But back then, when you got that big white puffy case for VHS, you knew you were getting something good. Like this, with the Goofy movie. I didn't realize critics didn't like that one. But again, I was a kid, so now if I'm a kid going to see the Mario Galaxy movie, I'll probably think that's like a 10 out of 10. I'm gonna go see that over and over again, or we'll get it in the big white puffy case when it releases, like at the end of the year. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you wanna check in with the Spawncast, a weekly podcast we do every Saturday night. It's hours of us just trying to talk about video games and things going on. I'll leave that in a card right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.